Five. All right. It's Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is GeekNights. Tonight we are reviewing Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. So, I uninstalled Pokemon Unite because it's a pay-to-win piece of shit game, despite...
I uninstalled that a long time ago.
I played it a bunch because the thing about that game that bothers me is, like, we don't tend to review games that are bad on GeekNights much anymore. Like, we rarely do that because they're just not even worth engaging with. Like, who cares? But Pokemon Unite, its actual core game is super fun. Like, I really enjoy playing it. Like, that is an interesting take on a MOBA that I really want to see explored more. But they literally ruined it with all that pay to win, so I uninstalled it. However, when I uninstalled it, it meant that I looked at, for a brief moment, the full library of games I bought on my Switch instead of just the ones I play. Like,
I do think that's an issue with the Switch interface, is that, you know, they put your apps in a straight line and you can go to the end and push the button like show all and you get a grid. On the DS, it's like, yeah, you couldn't see everything on one page if you had too many things, but you could make folders and it would, you know, you could, and it was like I guess you could set it differently, right? You could choose how to lay them out. But on the DS, I had the grid was like the default on my DS at least, and you could see everything, so you wouldn't like forget like, oh right, that game. It's like it's staring you right in the face. Where a good example is like Sonic Mania. I bought that, right? I bought digital only.
I remembered I owned that too. I forgot I owned that.
Yeah, it's not bad. I could have played it more than I did. I probably will play it again. But it's like it's not on the strip when I turn my Switch on.
Yep.
So I don't think to go to it because there's usually something in the strip that I've played recently.
Because I'm busy. I'm an adult. And with video games, out of sight, out of mind. Like I have so many options for gaming that if I'm presented with a list of options, I'll probably be more than happy to play one of the things I currently am looking at.
Yeah, Steam does a better job. You know, you have more screen real estate, obviously.
Yep. You can also make all those rules. Like I have different filters that'll like filter down to games I play regularly or games I have actually installed.
Yeah, well, I'm excited actually because the new iOS comes out Monday, right? So 6 days from now, and they added this feature called like focuses, and the idea of the feature is that you'll be like, okay, I want you tell your iPhone or iPad, hey, I want to focus on art right now, or I want to focus on whatever right now, right? And you configure each focus, and it's most of the focus settings are around notifications, because it would be like, okay, if you're focusing on that, we only want to give you notifications for these things right now and mute or hide notifications for these other things. Like you might have a notification for some news thing, but if you're currently in art focus mode, okay, we'll turn it off for now, and when you go back to normal mode or going about my day mode, will let that notification come through, right? That sort of thing. However, what I really want that feature for is that it lets you customize your home pages, right, and your widgets and everything per focus. It's like if you choose your art focus, you'll just, instead of like having to go to your art folder, it's like your whole homepage will just be your art apps. Right?
Well, like, you know what I could see that what you described being used for? I would definitely have a convention focus. Like, what do I do when I'm at conventions?
So that same feature could be good on a thing, a video game system like a Switch or Steam, right? So imagine Steam. You open up Steam and you say, "Hey, Steam, it's Sunday and it's rainy." Right? Show me the long single player games. I'm sitting here all day by myself.
Yep.
Right? Or you could be like, it's Steam. It's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I finished dinner on a weeknight and my friends are here. Show me the 3 to 4 player co-op multiplayer games. Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like if the thing, your library wouldn't filter by genre or the game you played recently or just some tags, right? But actually, based on your situation, right, show you the correct set of things to choose from. So the iOS one, you have to configure it by hand, which I'm going to probably spend a lot of time doing, especially on my iPad.
Yep. It's tricky though, because that feels a lot like the organization of files and all these other things like
That
photos.
we tried to get away. That the point libraries were supposed to eliminate that.
Yep. Like the way I used to handle photos is I would like in Flickr, like in ancient times, and then Lightroom, like old Lightroom in ancient times, like tag the people in all my photos so I could search and like manually curate all this data. Like, what are these? Increasingly, I can rely on heuristics, machine learning, and other ways to filter my data. And it's almost that the effort I put into curating that old data ended up being worthless. So I find that I increasingly am unwilling to curate current data if I can foresee a future where that curation will be replaced by something.
Yeah, the problem is that the current automatic stuff, like it's good.
Yeah, but it won't tell me like show me all my sports easily. Like there's ways to do that, but not.
It's not good enough. Like doing it by hand is still better. So you're always finding issues if you rely on some automated thing. But to do it by hand to get the better result is so much work. It's not worth it. It's like we're settling for a crappy result because it's too much manual work to get a better result. Right, so the automatic crappy result ends up winning. It's like, but if I really just give me the automatic good result, let's go. It's taking so long.
Yep. I feel like there's a big sector there that could be explored, but that's more of a Monday topic. But anyway, so because of this, I happen to see everything installed on my Switch. I saw that Sonic game, which looked pretty good. That's the kind of game I'd play like on the train if I'm just sitting there. And I saw West of Loathing, which I had literally never played even a second of.
I have that on Steam, yeah.
So I started playing it. I'm not going to do a full review. All I'll say is that I've been playing it a lot lately. I'm probably going to beat it real soon. That game is funny as shit. That game.
So I played it when it came out, and I didn't beat it. But I basically played it and got really far, and I got to a certain point, and then I stopped. I wasn't sure how close I was to the ending, but I was pretty deep. And I was having plenty of fun with it. I think I may have talked about it when I think you did. Figure out when the game came out, and then look at Tuesday Geek Nights around that time. You might see me talking about it, and that'll be better than me talking about it now, years later, who has forgotten almost everything.
Yep. But I guess the high level of what I would actually say is that one, it just like it's stylistically really well put together. Two, it's actually a pretty real game. The puzzles ain't trivial. Like they're clever puzzles, kind of like the original Kingdom of Loathing. Three, the soundtrack fucking slaps. And four, the writing, like the way characters engage with each other and like what the plot is this mix of it's funny and weird, but it also takes itself seriously insofar as a game like this can. And I don't know, like choices you make in this game actually do feel like they have consequences in a way that a lot of more real role-playing games, they really don't feel like they do anything. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you spend your effort working on that part of the game and not on, fancy graphics, then guess what? You can, But I also do want to mention, though, that, like, wasn't it revealed one of the guy who made Kingdom of Loathing is, like, a piece of shit? So.
Yeah, I remember something like that, but I don't remember the details of which dude it was or what the deal was.
Yeah, so I don't know if that person will get money if you buy West of Loathing now. So I don't want to, for that reason, I don't want to tell you to go buy it.
Yeah, but I will say, as a game, I am deeply and thoroughly enjoying it, and I am going to finish it soon. I just killed that fucking necromancer.
Yeah, I already own it, so maybe I will go back to it, and I'd have to start over. But it shouldn't take that long to.
All right, so the other game I've been playing, and I can't really say much about it yet, is Aliens Fireteam Elite. Which is
you took the bullet because I looked at that game and I said, man, that looks like a fun game for us to play together, but it's $40.
Yep.
Rim has money. You go test it out.
Tentatively, it's co-op only, which I do appreciate. It's 3-player co-op specifically, which happens to solve a problem that me and Scott have where there are exactly 3 of us who are pretty much always down to play a game. I'm even the one.
Figure out more genres of game that are good for 3-player co-op besides shoot stuff with your friends.
Yep. But if I had to describe it on a really high level, take Left 4 Dead and a lot of the things that Left 4 Dead did, especially Left 4 Dead 2, cross it with Helldivers, if anybody remembers that game that we reviewed, and make it...
That's basically shoot things with your friends, Robotron. There's a million games that are just like that. Yeah.
It's sort of a first-person shooter, but like head-clicking doesn't matter. What matters a lot more is you're playing a real fucking story game, just co-op. Like, it's a full-on aliens game with all the proper nouns you'd expect. And the game is basically, you're the Marine sent in to do a mission, and of course shit goes sideways, and you'll like make your way, solve puzzles, go along, and then you'll get cornered somewhere, and you'll play out the scene from Aliens where the turret ammo is slowly running down to zero. You'll play that scene out over and over again. But the scene is so different and so stressful every time that it's pretty fun. But I don't know if it's $40 fun yet. I got to poke at it more to make it a true. It is definitely $15 fun. If this game was $15, I'd say buy it immediately. I don't know about 40. I'm debating if 20 is the line, so stay tuned. But I'm going to play it some more. The other cool thing it does, if you don't have a third person or even a second person, if you go into the matchmaking to find people to play with, eventually it'll just be like, fuck it, here's an AI. He'll be good enough.
Yeah, so in similar news, right, I got the WarioWare game for $50. I'm testing that one out. And, if you're a WarioWare person, like you like a WarioWare, single player, it's like, yeah, you should get this game, but should you $50 get this game, right? It's like, Breath of the Wild is $50-$60. It's like, oof, it's tough to say $50 for Wario, even if it's a good Wario. But I haven't played any of the multiplayer modes yet, at least not ones that didn't have a single player option. But just examining them, there is some potential there for some good party times. I just don't know if they'll be... It's like, we had WarioWare that was endless fun party times, the GameCube one, right? And we had WarioWare that was no fun party times, the Wii one. This one, my guess is that it's going to be in the middle, where it's like fun party times that run out, like you get bored of it, but it's good until you get bored of it. So we'll see if it's $50 good, but Wario, right?
Yeah.
And it's got the good Wario style. You never get tired of Wario style.
Nope.
It's really...
The only thing I ever get disappointed about with Wario games is that they've so far still, not counting this one, which I have not touched yet, they haven't made Wario games that are even close to as good at multiplayer as the WarioWare on the GameCube.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll probably talk more about it after we play all the multiplayer in a party situation. But just early thoughts on the Wario game that is out now.
Yeah,
and Metroid whatever comes out like a month from now, so save your money for that one.
Yeah. So you got any gaming news on this fine Tuesday?
Do I have a gaming news? Well, it's sort of a gaming news in that, much like we just talked about the West of Loathing guy, whoever that is, who I heard was bad, there were other gaming people who were revealed to be bad. So there's a company you may have heard of called Broken Token, and what they sell are basically like these little wooden insert replacements to go in your board game boxes. So like there's some board game you buy, and everyone knows that the plastic inserts that come in board games to help you organize the game. First of all, let's talk about those. Just
I was about to say there's a whole we could do a whole fucking show on that concept.
But the point is they suck, right? Companies put them in there to they don't tell you how you're supposed to organize the game in the thing, right? You just sort of guess and figure it out. It takes up a lot of air in the box. Because they want to have like a big box, I guess. It makes the box bigger for no reason. If you took the insert out and just threw it in the trash, you could put the whole game in a smaller box. It's just wasting space. If you get an expansion for the game, well, now you can't fit it fucking in there because the insert's taking up all the space, and the insert wasn't made with the expansions in mind. Right. So those things to begin with suck. So the Broken Token was a company that's like, all right, you don't want to rebox your game like in a completely new box. You don't just want to put everything in baggies and toss it in the box because you're a fancy gamer person who's going to sleeve everything and spend a lot of money or whatever. So we'll sell you this wooden organizing thing.
But these wooden organizers, they echo old board games had these things in. Like there was an era where they had really good things in them, but they only work if you'd never carry that fucking box anywhere ever. If that box is sitting horizontal in your closet and you bring it out just to play the game and you put it straight back into the closet, keeping it horizontal the entire time.
Well, the idea is you give them money and they make things custom to particular games, and then so you would organize your stuff in this wooden thing. So apparently, the person who ran that company, the CEO, was a really bad person.
Accusations of sexual abuse and harassment. It's not. This is This is
I never
bad
bought
news.
any of their products, but now I definitely won't buy any of their products. And the person has been forced to step down, but they still own the company. So don't. I would say don't buy. I would encourage you not to buy any broken token organizing things. I would encourage you to stop caring so much about how pristine a piece of cardboard is. Right? The game is you can still play the game.
Oh,
the game is in mint condition.
Well, you know what I look for specifically. How quickly can I set the game up and tear the game down? That is my primary interaction with these systems.
I'm perfectly happy with a box full of baggies. Right?
Now, the listener also points out that part of the shift is that there was that era in the late 90s, early 2000s where some games came with really overwrought, like, trays in them. But today, the primary reason those trays exist is, which was a fair point, is just to ship the game to you once, and they assume you're going to do something different once it arrives. Like, doesn't matter after that point.
Some companies do, but some don't. The inserts are all fancy, and they made that to.
Well, they point out that some games work with a company like Gamer Trays or one of those other companies that makes that kind of stuff to have a good solution in the box already. Other companies don't care. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm still a fan of lots of little baggies because usually that is the quickest way to organize the things in a way that's good for setting the game up quickly.
Yep. Just put everything in baggies, throw out all the inside stuff.
Yep. Broken Token is basically completely fucked by this. 13 employees were laid off. All their partners quit. Company's basically done. And frankly, sorry, but that's good news. You can't let people like this exist in this industry at all.
Yeah, but the problem is when the shitty person is the CEO, which CEO is usually the shitty person, right?
Yep.
It's like,
well, no, so this is a topic I was kind of saving for a Thursday, but I've realized.
But the people who were laid off, it's like they weren't bad people, right? But now they lost their jobs because of this, right?
This is a lot of people are using the old phrase "one rotten apple spoils the bunch" really weird and wrong lately. So I got to set the record straight because this is another one of those situations. What that aphorism means is that if there's even one bad apple, all the apples are fucked. You got to get rid of that apple as soon as possible, no matter what, or all the apples are gone. That is what that means. It doesn't mean, oh, only a few of the apples are bad. Looking at you, people who are trying to support the police right now.
Yeah.
But same thing here. They let this apple persist, and now all the apples got fucked.
Anyway, and similar news, right? A company that I didn't know existed. The CEO was a piece of shit. This company Tripwire that made some video games.
They made games that Scott and I don't like. They're not necessarily bad games. They're just not the kind of games we play.
What games does Tripwire make? I don't even freaking know, right?
I remember I looked it up.
It was a big deal.
Like Killing Floor was a Red Orchestra, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so Killing Floor, I've heard that's like an FPS that I have.
Killing Floor is the only one I could think of off the top of my head, so I'm looking through. Oh, I guess they made Dwarfs.
That I own because I got it into free in some bundle, and I've never played it. And it's just, my thoughts on it, having never played it, are that's an FPS that some small number of people still keep playing, but isn't really big and popular, but is like subsisting.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Has some fans for some reason and is sort of over there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of games.
I don't know what that is.
I've been a fan of games like that before. Like, I'm one of the 40 weirdos who are really into this game. More than 40 in this case. But yeah, the CEO of Tripwire, they did something bad too. What they did is they basically tweeted being in support of the egregious and undemocratic ban on abortion that was just passed in the American state of Texas, which, to be very clear, that is a straight up, like, incorrect opinion to have. Like, I fully support you not being allowed to be in the game industry if you believe that. And it's not even just that he has this horrific belief. He expressed this belief from his public Twitter account that reflects directly on the company itself and all of its employees. I think the employees even issued a statement saying, fuck that guy.
Yep. So they got rid of that guy, and there's a new guy, but the new guy came in. However, I mean, not that I was playing or buying any of their games except by accident, right? But the new guy, well, I guess apparently possibly not, who knows what their position is on the abortion thing, but I think someone was like, I think somebody tweeted, I don't know that you might want to investigate this to make sure that it's true. I'm not standing by this, but I saw a tweet that suggested that the new guy who came in changed his like Twitter photo or profile or something.
I saw that he had a gun in it and he took it out.
He was like a gun dude, right? So gun dude has a high, it doesn't mean necessarily, right? But high correlation with not good dude. Right?
Yep.
So we don't know if they've fixed their problem, but I wasn't buying anything from them to begin with, so
Nope.
I don't feel the need to change now.
But this gets more into a fundamental, like this edges back into this conversation people are having as they discover that Nabisco is a horrible company that mistreats its workers, but they want to buy Pokemon Oreos and cross that picket line. There's obviously, in capitalism, there's no such thing as ethical consumption. Like, that is true, but a lot of people like to use that as an excuse to keep doing their bullshit. Because of the current extreme assault on abortion rights in America, it is pretty much unethical to do business with a company that doesn't support abortion rights, or at least does not actively oppose abortion rights.
Right. Well,
like,
the big picture, right, is that, corporate America, right, because they've been allowed to have influence in government via giving money to elected officials, right, now effectively, in many ways, is either A, monopolies that are more powerful than the government, right? Or controls some aspect of the government via money. So now it's like we find ourselves appealing to companies via capitalism, right? With, our energy that should just simply be energy spent in a democratic, public fashion, right? We now have to go to these companies rather than just going to the elected people, right? With our voices. So we'd like to change that so that's not the case, which we're still trying to do. But while that's the state of things, it's like, if you're mad about some technology policy, it's like being mad at Apple, Google, Microsoft is probably going to get you just as far as, complaining to your senator about it or whatever. So you got to complain to all of them.
Yep. But also, it's directly harmful to the people who could get pregnant and the people who love, care about, or know those people who might work for this company. I mean, we've already seen a bunch of other companies literally giving employees money if they need to get the fuck out of Texas. Like, that's going to continue. So... Torn Banner, I see Torn Banner issued a statement about this. We do not share the opinion expressed in a recent tweet by the president of Tripwire, publisher of Chivalry 2. This perspective is not shared by our team, nor is it reflected in the games we create.
Yep.
The statement stands in opposition to what we believe about women's rights. And you saw this across the industry of pretty much every non-shitty company that interfaces with Tripwire issued a statement like this basically immediately.
Yeah, so the other thing we're seeing lately, which is good, is we're seeing companies that are, all companies are shitty, right? Because capitalism. But we're seeing companies with, less shitty leadership, right? Is what they're doing is when they discover that they are doing business with someone shitty, right? They're cutting them off. They're being like, I've seen people who had like licensing deals to make a game, right? And then the person who was making the game revealed themselves, Milkshake Duck, and then the company that sold that, licensed the IP to them was like, you know what? You can't make that game. Bye.
Yep.
Too bad. We're not letting you make that game anymore because you suck. We don't want to, and it's just like, that hurts way more than, a bunch of fans refusing to buy the game.
Yeah.
There's always those bad fans who will buy it, who might be enough in existence to, get them profits.
All of these kinds of things do clearly reek of either rainbow capitalism or progressive capitalism. Like, brands will often do things like this just for profit motives. But there's an important aspect to that. One, it does deny resources in the long term to shitty people and at least keep those resources from going to those shitty people, even if it doesn't go to good people. Like, at least it's almost like stopping the bleeding. But two,
it might go to a different shitty person.
Yeah,
it's like at least.
But it's still, it over time disincentivizes. Like, you can almost see having a piece of shit person in your company in a position of leadership as a corporate risk. And as soon as the people who care about the money, Blizzard's being sued by its own shareholders because they failed to disclose their shitty sexist culture, and they're arguing, the shareholders, that the stock dropped and the company is materially harmed by the fact that shitty people work there, and the company hid that from them. The shareholders are saying they should have been informed that shitty sexist people work at Blizzard. That's a big deal. And I can't say much more about that because of my day job. So I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm not a registered investment advisor. So the other thing that...
How do I become a registered investment advisor?
Take a test.
Well, next time.
You want to be a registered investment advisor? It's not that hard.
I didn't. That's what I was thinking. It probably isn't that hard.
No, it's not that hard. You just you would have to learn a lot of proper nouns, but it's not as complicated as you think. It basically boils down to basic ethics plus a basic understanding of capital markets and like how finance works.
Can I make money doing that?
Yes, registered investment advisor is literally a career.
Oh,
And
yeah,
your advice doesn't even have to be fucking good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like I could just be like index funds. The end. Next person, just tell the same thing to every single person who comes in.
All I'm gonna say is, you would really think how the wealth management industry works is funny. That's kind of how it goes. But I digress. So, but the important thing to internalize if you're depressed about the state of the world and you see this rainbow capitalism or progressive tinge capitalism as just being a cynical cash grab, even if you're right, and it is 100% a cynical cash grab, it means the people with money and resources think that the winning side is the correct side. They're saying we will make more money selling to gay people or more money selling to good people than we will continuing to hold on to evil people. That doesn't mean they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. It means you're starting to win a little bit. It's a point that just is worth talking about because people often lose that. But also, don't do business with shitty companies if you can avoid it. Don't buy the Pokemon Oreos until Nabisco ends the strike by giving their workers rights.
Yep.
So in some other news along these lines, Twitch is starting to do something about another kind of shitty person.
Well, we talked about this story already.
Yep. So I'm not going to recap the whole thing. TLDL. There are bots that are actively, aggressively, and at extreme scale harassing primarily Black and LGBT streamers on Twitch, like on a scale that is unprecedented.
Right. And the bots were run by, obviously a small number of people.
Yep.
Right?
Twitch.
A small number of people causing a large amount of damage.
Twitch, for all the other things going on, they're doing one thing that I think is good, and I want to see more of this. They are suing 2 individuals for coordinating this harassment and harassing people. Suing them in court.
2 of the people are, and they're like, not just banning them from Twitch, right? They're like saying, okay, we're going to come after you and actually sue you, the human being. We figured out who you were. You're running these botnets. Here we come, right?
Yep.
I hope you're ready to face a lawsuit.
Yep.
Get a lawyer.
Because remember, some shitty edgelord 4chan troll, they don't care about getting banned. They're behind 7 proxies and have their botnet.
They'll just make another. They're making bots all the time. They can make another account too.
Yep. But if suddenly their mom, or most likely they're actually in their 30s now, and they themselves get a lawsuit, legal consequences, that is a very different conversation. This is
why I keep saying I want to make a platform where it's like the same way that like a sports league fines players for misbehaving. I want to make some sort of, computing platform where if you fuck around, right, we fine you. We just take your money. It's like, oh, you said a slur while you were playing that video game. You just lost $100, right? Go say slur again. See what happens, right? I'm not even going to ban you. Give me another $100 instead.
Yep.
I think there's a way to make that work somehow.
There was an early, simpler internet where generally things that happened on the internet stayed on the internet and you could treat it as a different world. We have long passed that point. So if harm is coming to people via the internet, then finding out and consequences has to come back to those same people via the legal system. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out.
But it's all for naught if the raids and stuff don't stop happening and Twitch doesn't become a safe place for streamers of all kinds. And this doesn't mean anything, right?
Yep.
So, it's like, this is nice, but it doesn't, show me that it's actually solving the root problem, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, there's bad people and you took their money, but is it any better to be on Twitch? No, it's still a shitty place. Well, you didn't do anything, did you?
Yep, because the other side of this is, while this is good, there are, and we talked about it in the show, I'm not going to digress because we got to do the main bit, but we've talked about this before. There are like 15 objective, specific, easy to implement things Twitch could have done that they refused to do. And I think they're still culpable for not stopping this harassment. They could have stopped this instantly.
I'd like to see, and this is the right. So if the people who were the victims of harassment had money, they should sue Twitch and be like, you could have implemented all these basic measures and you didn't, right? I was harassed because you didn't do anything about it, right? All you did was, sue the two of the people you thought did it, but you didn't do anything to stop it. You could have stopped it and you didn't, right?
Yep.
Just like if an arsonist burns your house down, but your house was also, made poorly and was very flammable, you could sue the person who made the house too, probably, right? Same kind of thing. Not just the arsonist.
And in one last little, actually, we should probably just move on to that gotcha.
Well, yeah, what kind of more news are you doing?
I want to talk about that Hearthstone gotcha thing. I'll save that for another show.
Who cares? No one cares.
But anyway, things of the day. So this is just a really tiny thing. This article is so short, but I laughed out loud. I think it's really funny, and I just want to share it with you. It is titled, "Email Addresses It Would Be Really Annoying to Give Out Over the Phone." And these are email addresses like,
well, we're on a podcast, so you can't really give them out, can you?
Like Mike_2004@yahoo.com, or 11 the first just the number the second spelled out at hotmail.com, or
so
a.
This is not working because you're over the phone, effectively speaking.
Yep. A. That's 6 A's
of the day
at Yahoo.
See the email addresses, and then you'll understand.
I like it because there have been a couple of games, like that bomb game, the VR game where you're trying to defuse the bomb, that take advantage of this type of wordplay to make it very difficult to explain to the person in VR what the fuck they're supposed to do. You're like, cut the blue wire, and they cut the blue wire, the one labeled blue, and it's the one called the blue wire that is red. Like that kind of situation. But this tickled my fancy. What do you got?
So I didn't know until somewhat recently that in the game of badminton, right, the shuttlecocks, there's, the ones we used when you were a kid, you bought them in like a pack, just like you bought tennis balls, and they were pretty much plastic, right? Some of them were slightly fancier, but they were still plastic. Apparently, in the competition serious badminton, you have to get real ones made with like real feathers. Like it's like some specific thing, like a left side of a goose. I don't even know what the hell it is.
The left side of a goose.
It is because they're all the same way. I forget. I read it somewhere, but there apparently, there's the one.
I'm gonna type that into Google to see if anyone's ever said that before.
It's something like that. But anyway, someone posted this on Twitter, this video. And it shows people in a village in India where there used to be several.
So the phrase, the left side of a goose, returns exactly one Google result in the entire world. And it is shuttlecockonline.page.tl.
Something like that, yeah. Anyway.
I have not seen a search that returned a single result in like 7 years. This is amazing.
Yeah. Badminton shuttlecocks, feathers of light. So, but also ducks, right? But anyway, so this place, the video here shows this place in India where they're making shuttlecocks by hand from basically duck feathers that came from a nearby, duck slaughterhouse. So it's like they just buy the feathers in big bundles, right, for cheap. And there used to be a lot of places that did this, and this is the only place still doing it by hand, because they're not only making not fake ones, right? They're real feathered ones, but they're also doing it by hand. There's like almost no machines involved, because you could just dump the feathers into a machine that makes them also, right? Instead of doing it by hand. So it's pretty fascinating to see some handiwork like this, but also. Apparently, I was not aware of this, but it makes perfect sense. These shuttlecocks fly completely differently from the ones you would buy. So it's not like tennis where like you buy some yellow balls and like, yeah, that's what they're using to play tennis, right? It's like if you are at home playing badminton with the plastic ones from the store, and then you want to go and play real badminton, you're going to be way off, right? Because they're going to real badminton uses the real feather ones only. But real badminton is thinking about changing up the official rules.
They probably should.
Right, but you got to get one that flies correct, or otherwise it's basically a completely different sport because it's so dramatically different.
Of course, maybe.
It would be like the difference between like duck pin bowling and regular bowling.
So one could argue that if hockey pucks required immense animal suffering to create, that maybe if we change the way hockey pucks work, that would be fine.
Well, there are some articles I've seen that are like, yeah, there's places that are plucking live, animals to get the feathers, and that's fucked up. Don't be doing that. But it seems like this place, they weren't doing that. At least the video doesn't say they were. Who knows what the reality is? But it's like, yeah, if you're killing a duck anyway to make duck meat, you might as well use the feathers, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Use all of the left side of the goose.
Yeah.
In the meta moment.
Duck bones to make Halloween decorations.
The GeekNights Book Club book, Tale of Genji. Powering through it. Still going to do the show in the next month or so, I think.
The next month, October 2022.
I think in October we can do this show. I'm still setting my eyes on October.
We'll see.
Just power through it. Just don't. If you're not sure who someone is, you'll figure it out later. I only remember chapters by who was Genji having sex with or trying to have sex with in that chapter. And if I think the same
couple chapters I read, he wasn't trying to have sex with anybody.
Oh, yeah, that does happen occasionally. There are some chapters where he did not actually try to have sex with anyone. But then there are chapters where he makes up for that.
Anyway,
I don't have anything else. There's no conventions coming up. Like MagFest was announced, but that's too far in the future.
We're going to that.
Yep. Not going to PAX South.
PAX Unplugged has not had any announcements. We presume it's probably going to happen. We don't know anything, so who knows what's going to be going on there.
Even if PAX South meets all of our requirements, I'm really not willing to do business in Texas, so I ain't going to PAX South.
Yeah, Kineticon just happened. People were there, I know.
Yep.
But they said it was way less crowded than usual. Obviously, we weren't there.
Yep, which good. I do want to go back to Kineticon, but not during a global pandemic. It's not worth risking my life.
Yep. Who knows?
So otherwise, just follow us on the internet. There's a lively live stream with a surprising amount of chatter right now. And we'll just get into the main bit. We played a game called Oath. Chronicles of Empire and Exile.
Yeah, so the people who brought you Root, the same designer, Cole Worley, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, sorry, Cole, and the artist everyone loves, is it Kyle Farron is the name of the artist that everybody loves who does the Root art?
Kyle Farron.
All right, I was right, Kyle Farron.
Yeah, Root, Fort, Oath, like the holy trinity of amazing game art.
Right. It was basically like, hey, this team brought you Root, this amazing mega hit game. Let's make another game called Oath. So what is Oath? Oath is nothing like Root, really, although you can see some similarities, right? Because it's, same designer and whatnot.
I saw someone said it best as it's almost like if you took Root and zoomed way out, both physically and in terms of time. To the point,
I think you're zooming. You're zooming out in terms of time, but you're zooming in. Like you're just one character, right?
True.
One person.
You've got like your entourage, and maybe some influence out there,
dude. Right. Whereas in Root, you're like a kingdom, all right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's Oath? The idea in Oath is that there is this sort of kingdom. Right. And it has a main area. It has, sort of a suburban villages area. And then it's got a faraway hinterlands area. Right. And over time, the kingdom shit happens. Right. There's a chancellor who rules. Sometimes they continue and they keep ruling. Sometimes and they build things up. And, the kingdom waxes and wanes over, and things happen. And when you sit down to play Oath, you are playing one chapter in the story of the kingdom, right? You start out basically with the status quo of the kingdom as it was, right? The chancellor and the stuff that they were controlling is already set. So if the chancellor ended, it's a legacy game, right? So if the chancellor ended the last game in a strong position, they're going to start the game in a big, strong position.
Yeah.
And if they, right? And then maybe... and the thing is, whoever won, it might not have been the chancellor that started last time, won last time, but whoever let's say one of the other non-Chancellor players won the game last time. Well, at least story-wise, the Chancellor of the current game is whoever won the last game, right? It might have been some exile or a citizen or who knows what, right? So you set up the game according to how the last game ended, and then you play out another chapter. And what happens is you have the Chancellor. They start out with all the stuff. There may be characters who are citizens. Citizens are on the Chancellor's side. They use the Chancellor's units. They don't have their own units. But their goal is to A, get the Chancellor to win, but B, become the successor to the Chancellor. So they become the new Chancellor, even though the team Chancellor won. And then everyone else is an exile who is basically trying to overthrow in some manner. And, basically you're just this individual and you travel. The thing about this game that I love the most is that every action you do in the game, right, speaks narratively. The mechanics and the narrative just merge completely.
Well, like in the game we just played,
a role-playing game, but you could make it one kinda.
Yep, like in the game we just played, because of what was happening on the board, my army, my base of power consisted of a bunch of geriatrics living in a tent city. And that's what my army consisted of. That's how things shook down. What are they after? What are their motivations? You can infer that pretty heavily from the events that happen in the game itself.
Yeah, it's like every single act. So there's a bunch of. I'm not going to talk about all the rules. It'll take forever. Read them yourself. They're free online. But a simple action in the game would be like muster, right? Which lets you add war bands to your little entourage, right?
Yep.
So you are physically your pawn, which represents you, the character, right? You're at a location. Maybe you're in the hinterlands, and in the hinterlands is a forest, right? And in the forest, there's some cards next to the forest. The cards have denizens, right? People who live in that forest. And some locations, like we had what was it, a sunken city?
Yep.
That has a maximum space for 0. No one can live there. It has 0. You're not allowed to have denizens there.
But there's a pile of nonsense there, a bunch of relics.
Right. But like a Pleasant Vale might have 3 spots for denizens or something. So you go there and there's some denizens. And you see, and one of the denizens is the old people, the elders, right? They're living there. So you want to muster. So you do is you take favor, right? And you give the favor to the elders, and then you add 2 war bands to your board. And it's like, that tells you just did one action in the game, but it tells this story of I did a favor for the old people, and some old people joined my army.
Yep.
Right?
Or the old people told me secrets or something.
Right? You trade with the old people. Hey, old people, I'll do you a favor if you tell me a secret. Or, hey, old people, I'll tell you secrets if you do me a favor. Or, everything you do in the game is something along those lines that tells a little mini story. And those little mini stories add up into the big story. And then the game ends, right? And you figure out who is going to be, who is ruling the kingdom next time, right? Versus this time. And there's all sorts of fun things to interact with, right? You've got the denizens, right? You got some cards. You got some cards that are your advisors, right?
Yep.
They're basically denizens that walk around with you everywhere. They're just only working with you, not with anyone else.
There's all these relics, and a fun thing, another game that we'll talk about.
Magic items you can get.
There's a game we'll talk about another time. We'll review called Fortress, the Friedman Freeze game, that does something similar in that we haven't seen the deck. So I'll go somewhere and see a relic. And that relic, just the way the game is constructed and the way you play each round, maybe no other human has ever seen at this table before. So I know something.
People currently playing, if you haven't looked up all the card spoilers.
Yep, which I'm avoiding. So it was interesting I saw a relic. I was like, oh, okay, that seems like a reasonable thing for a game to do. And then I saw another relic, and that relic seemed so powerful and weird that it gave me pause to consider what the fuck other relics might I run into.
Yeah, it's because every time when you finish a game, you start the game with a deck they give you, but there's a bunch more cards in the box. When you finish a game, whoever won is going to make some decisions, right, relating to the state of the board, and they're basically going to remove some cards from the deck and add 6 cards to the deck. So you're constantly cycling out and in cards right? And so the next time you play, you're going to see some stuff you're familiar with, but the kingdom over time. The kingdom is changing, right? Some people who used to live here don't live here anymore. Some new people showed up. Some people, but most of it is basically the same, at least as of last game. But compared to 10 games ago, it's completely different, right? It's been so long since then. There's no one alive from 10 games ago. It's been so long, right? So you're telling this long story. The edition I got, I don't know if I didn't pay extra for extra Kickstarter biz. I just Kickstarted at the level of give me the game, but it came with metal favor tokens.
Oh, they feel so nice.
Special rosin secret book tokens. And also this little leathery book to write your chronicle in, right? Because it's
people are making art in those chronicle books.
Yeah, so I'm like, the Chronicle book, it's like you have 1 page per game that you write down what the hell happened, and then you build this chronicle, right, of what happened in the kingdom over time. You keep playing this game over and over.
Yep. I guess I'm just flipping through Board Game Geek. This one person, they had 1 page where I guess the Fox people became the chant.
Exile, yeah.
Yep, they won. So they didn't write any words. They just drew a picture of an evil-looking fox with some shadowy flame, and it just says Shrouded Rebellion. They didn't write anything else. So whatever the fuck happened in that game, I feel like the Foxes got up to some bad news business and won the game.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just I don't know how else to describe this game. So I guess the rules a little bit rules, right? So it's an action point game. You on your turn. Right, you go. This is, I think, the only negative about the game is that much like Root, it is still a game where you don't do much when it's not your turn.
Yep.
So on your turn, you do a whole bunch of stuff, and then it's the next person's turn. So if you're playing with a lot of players, I think it lets you go from 2 to 6. If you play 2, you need an AI player. I don't think that that's great. 5 and 6, I think, is too many because it takes so long, and the players who have the last turn order at a bit of a disadvantage because the game starts. 4 turns worth of stuff happens, then they get their first turn. It's like, oh my God, right? And there's too much waiting, and it takes too long. I think 3 or 4 players is ideal.
Though, if everyone is fully fluent in the mechanics, I think the game would move literally twice as fast as our early games.
The game is actually not a slow game if everyone knows how to play. It's the first time you play, you're going to need to spend a lot of time rule learning and card reading. And probably the second time, and if you don't play with the same exact people again, you're going to still spend time card reading and rule learning, and some exceptions to the rules are going to get you. Yep. But if you're playing with people who got good at the game, you can under 2 hours easily, right? And there's a lot of variance in that as well, depending on how the game ends. But on your turn, you have this supply meter, and you just spend action points to do actions. There's a whole list of actions.
Stuff like travel out to the hinterlands, or recruit some armies, or go get this relic, or fucking attack someone.
And some actions are free, like put some denizens out, I guess not. It's not free to go exploring and look for some cards, to get more cards, but it's a thing you can do. All right, battling obviously is an action. All kinds of actions you do. You spend your points, but if you run out of supplies, right? Narrative again. You're spending some things you want to do cost supplies. Moving around costs supplies. You're traveling, right? Obviously that costs supplies. The farther you travel, the more supplies it costs. But just telling someone who's hanging out with you, right? Like one of your advisors to hey, you should stay here. I'm going to leave. That doesn't cost any supplies, right? You're just saying, hey, stay here, right? You're just giving someone an order. It takes 2 seconds, right? And you go around doing these things, telling your little story on your turn. And then you say you're done. And then you refresh your supply. You refresh your supply according to how big if your army is real big, you have less supplies. It's harder to move around, and you got to feed all these freaking soldiers or whatever. If your army is real small, then you got more supplies. You can do more stuff, right? You're not hanging around with a big crowd. Again, narratives that make sense with the mechanic, right? So you just do this, and every game there's going to be this victory condition, the oath, and whoever is currently leading is going to have the Oathkeeper banner. The Chancellor always starts with it because they're always in the strong position at the start of the game. And they just have it because they're no matter what at the start of the game, the board will be in such a state that the starting Chancellor is meeting the victory condition more than anyone else, no matter what. But as soon as the game goes on, someone else, right, could take that away from them. It's possible. And if they do, and they hold on to that oath, if they keep that oath long enough, and you think, oh, well, how are they going to do this? Right? Well, the Chancellor just naturally loses power as the game goes on. It's just structured in that way. So if the game goes on too long, the Chancellor is going to get weak. The Chancellor can get strength by getting people to become citizens and join their team if they weren't citizens at the start. But if a non-citizen holds that oath for too long, I think 2 laps around the table, then they win, right? Because the Chancellor lost their oath. Another way to win, if somebody is not the Chancellor, they're in exile, there's visions. And if they have a vision, right? I had a vision of an empire, right?
Yep.
And you fulfill the vision somehow, right? Well, then
there are going to be 9 small mushrooms in a row. This I so decree.
Right. If you're in exile and you have a vision and you bring it about, it's like that's such a tremendous thing, right? You're a visionary figure in the society, right? And it came true. Well, then that's it. You win. But to make a vision happen, it's like you have to play the vision so everyone sees it on your turn, and then it has to go all the way around the board. And at the start of your turn, the vision has to be fulfilled still, and that's difficult to do because everyone sees it and tries to mess it up, sort of like Dune. Yep. Where it's like, I'm winning on my turn, who's going to stop me?
The game very much becomes 1 or more players will win if the game gets back around to them, and the game becomes really, like, not to get into the details of the mechanics, because again, it would just take too much time, and it would also be too hard to explain without visual aids. But what I would say is, the way you are engaging with the game is you are trying to prevent the person who is currently winning from actually winning when it gets around to them, while posturing to be ready to be the person who will win after they have failed.
Yep. And the last thing is if the Chancellor just holds on to the oath, right? They stay strong. They remain the oath keeper. Then halfway through the game can only ever be 8 rounds long. After the 5th round, I think, they get to roll a d6.
Yep, they do. They do indeed get to roll that d6.
If it comes up on a 6 exactly, they win. But if they get to go another round, let's say they make it to the 6th round and they're still the oath keeper, now they win on like a 5 or a 6. And basically the odds of them winning keep increasing if they manage to hold on to the oath, right, as the game nears the 8th round. If they're holding on to it at the 8th round, they just win.
Yep.
If not, there's like a list of things that happen.
So the fun part about that is it really gives this feeling of like, you've got to take your shot, or they're just too powerful.
And then the final thing is if the Chancellor does win, but one of the citizens has met the successor goal, they win instead of the Chancellor. So it's like the Chancellor wants to win, but it's like if someone else that's on your team is meeting this successor goal, it's like you have to find some way to like bring them down without hurting the team, because otherwise you don't win.
Yeah, like all the outcasts to a degree, or the exiles, have to sort of work together. At least, like, I wouldn't antagonize a fellow exile early in the game necessarily, unless I had some reason to, like a vision in my hand that I need to set myself up for later. So the game ends up simulating this feeling of court intrigue pretty well. And
I guess the last thing is that, you know, nothing in the game, it's like, you know, is like, you think, oh, the Chancellor is like special. It's like they're a little special, but really it's unlike Root. It's very symmetrical. Everyone does the same things on their turn, the same actions, the same supply thing, basically. For example, the Chancellor has this like scepter, like this royal scepter thing. It's a relic. It's just a relic like any other relic.
I could just steal it.
You could just steal it. And if you have the scepter, you have control of the royal, you know, reliquary, and you can make people into citizens. You can grant them citizenship because you're holding the scepter, or you can exile people who are citizens. And it's like the Chancellor starts with it, but anyone else can come and fucking
imagine Scott's the Chancellor. He gives Joey Shabadoo citizenship, and then I steal the scepter and exile Joey Shabadoo. How fun is that?
Right. It's hard to do, but you can do it. You know, you can all these things are possible. Like nothing in the game is like special in any kind of way. It's like you can interact with all the things in ways that make sense narratively within the context of the actions.
And I guess
get really creative with your solutions, right?
the mechanics
situations.
I would call out on a high level without getting too deep into the details are that one, the economy of the game is interesting in that it is a closed economy. Like if you do things, favor goes out onto the board, and favor only comes back from that same board. And some things you do just destroy favor. Like you could shrink the actual full economy of the game in the course of the game. Another commodity, the secrets, those books, they're a resource that you can just use over and over and over again. They're like a recharging resource, but you can also burn them to almost supercharge yourself. But as I learned, if you burn all your books, you're not in a great position in the mid game.
Right. But you can also just get more books, right? There's an infinite supply of books, but they're very difficult to get. So,
meanwhile, the favors are easier to get, but they're literally a zero-sum game.
Yeah, the favors are in this sort of closed economy, but not only are there a limited number of them, but based on the suits on the different cards, we're not going to get into that, but basically there's different piles of favor. So maybe there's a huge pile of favor on like the hearth bank. So you can, doing hearth things, like you can go get favors from hearth peoples, but maybe the Discord bank could be empty. Maybe someone emptied it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you're playing a big Discord game, you have Discord advisors and stuff. And it's like, well, you want to get some favor. It's like, well, you can't. The Discord people have no favors to give. They've already given all their favors.
Yep.
You know, they're too busy or they're spent. Right. And that's what it's again, narratively representing. Like, yeah, you kept going to ask favors from the old people. They don't have any more favors to give anymore.
They gave you all their hard candy.
Right. People kept giving favors to the Order, clan. It's like, so now you can go and ask the Order clan for favors because they're doing great. They got plenty of time to help you out, join your army, whatever you want them to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I guess the other interesting mechanic is the way combat works is the dice have a whole thing going on, but basically, if I'm attacking Scott, I list out all the things Scott has that I want to attack. And it turns into one big pool, and I either win it all or I win nothing. So you can literally go big or go home with this game. And that's there's a lot of nuance and detail to that, but
you can attack people, you can attack their relics.
I could be like, I'm just going to steal
banners, which you didn't even talk about the banners.
Yep. Like I might say, I'm just going to take that relic from you. Or I might say, I'm going to knock you out of these 4 places and I'm stealing your favor and I'm taking that relic. And then you're like, well, I have a giant army. I'm the chancellor. What the fuck do you have?
Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. You get really creative with what you're going to do.
Yep.
And then basically the attacker, the defender rolls dice and sets the bar, right? It's like, this is how high you have to jump if you want to win. Then the attacker jumps. And if the attacker doesn't meet the bar or exceed it, they can kill their own guys to jump higher or just accept the loss.
Yep.
So that's how the combat works. And then, yeah, like Rim said, the attacker either wins, in which case they take all the things that they were attacking, or they lose and they just lose half their dudes who were in the attack.
So I guess, should you buy it or not is an interesting question, because I would say play it once, maybe before you buy it, just to make sure the mechanics jive with you. The first game will be slow.
On TTS, you can read the rules online. The PDF is just on their website.
Yeah, there's an official tabletop simulator, like scripted version. You can just open and play. But try it out once.
I don't know how you preserve the legacy aspect.
I don't think
there might be a way. There probably is a way, but you're probably just gonna, use it to test and play the first game with the starting setup.
Internalize that your first game, especially if it's a teaching game, will take about twice as long as a game once everyone knows the deal. Like literally about twice as long.
Also, accept the fact that you're gonna get there are some fiddly rules. The biggest rule we keep getting wrong is the protection. This will make no sense to anyone, but you can only reclaim the banner of the darkest secret if the person who has it is at a site where one of the advisors at the site at least does not match, one of the denizens at the site does not match the suit of any of the person's advisors. It's like they have to be in a place where someone lives who is not friendly with them, right? Narratively, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, you want to steal the banner of the darkest secret from someone. They have to be standing in a place where there are unfriendly peoples that you can convince to help you steal the banner. If they're standing among friends or standing among no one, who's there to steal it? Right? But it's a really hard rule to remember and parse when you read the English of it.
Yep. So when you're teaching this game, spend a lot of time on all the proper nouns and defining them. It'll save you a lot of grief. But if you like it, like you feel like you can engage with it, I'd also say only buy it if you are confident you will get it to the table a bunch of times. Not necessarily with the same people, but this game does not shine unless you play it many times.
Yep. I mean, some people out there I know are like, I'm going to play it only with this one group and that's it. And
that's a real fun way to go.
Yeah, it's a fun way to go. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be the one who I'm playing it with whoever is going to play it, right? I don't need the same people to be in the same seat all the time, right?
So like we met with the person who was the chancellor in the game before the game we played, and we could tell the story like, hey, Scott, the steward of your empire, kept it together. He's still chancellor.
Yeah, it's like, so like, because narratively, right? If the red exile wins in game 1, in game 2, the chancellor at the start of game 2, there might be a different red exile in game 2, but the chancellor in game 1 is that same person who was the red exile in the previous game because they won, right?
Yep.
So you can carry it forward that way if you keep playing with the same human beings. Like you can really be the character, but you don't have to, right? It's like it doesn't matter. It works out.
Yeah. So try it out before you buy it, and really like. If you like it, commit to it, or you probably don't want to buy it because playing one iteration of this game without interacting with that longer term, like, hey, what kinds of stories did we create? It's fun, but it's not like that much fun without like engaging with all these other long-term mechanics.
Yeah, if you just keep playing like the starting setup over and over, like you're gonna get
real bored.
Yeah, it's not that fancy, right? At least, it is fancy, I guess. We had a lot of fun with it, but if you did it over and over again, it's like you're seeing the same cards, right?
Yeah.
You don't have any like ruins and other edifices that can end up on the board. There's all these other things going on when you play several times. More powerful relics coming out, different sites. Like we had, like I said, that sunken city. That sunken city was... narratively, we went there and we dug up, had 3 relics. It's like a place full of relics. So we traveled there and we all, competed in almost like an Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Yeah.
To dig up all the relics there, right? And it's like that thing won't be in your first game ever. It's not possible. It's not in the starting setup. And, to experience that, you're going to have to play, a few games, right?
So I'd say it's a pretty elegant, ambitious, and fairly unique game. Like this is almost, there have been legacy games before, but this is the first one that I think is doing something really interesting and novel. And I think games like this will start to come based on people's experiences with this game. I think there'll be another game like Oath in the coming 3 or 4 years that will eclipse it, but there's nothing like this out there right now other than Oath. And I do want to play it more. I did enjoy it thoroughly. And I think that's a fine show. We've gone on for like an hour and 5 minutes.